Barbara Armentrout, and I am again delighted to welcome our panelists for continuing conversations on AI for consultants. I want to do our introductions here. Sherry, please say hello and describe your consulting work for associations and your new book, Rug.
Oh, thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Sherry Budziak. I am the founder and CEO of .org Source. So I've been helping associations and mission-driven organizations use technology to strengthen operations, deepen member value, and stay kind of steady with constant change. So obviously, a big focus of my work today is helping leaders with AI. From just, the buzzword to helping with real capabilities, building use cases, putting together like the right guardrails and helping people gain some confidence to get started. So Barbara mentioned the book. So Rug, Move What You're Tripping Over and Lead with Heart is going to be released on February 1. And it's part storytelling, part workbook to help people kind of guide people through disruption and change and all those types of things. So I'm really excited about that. So thanks for mentioning it.
Wonderful. And you'll tell us how we can order copies. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
thanks.
we can get it both on Amazon and Barnes and Noble's. Pre-orders are available now. Thanks.
Yay. And Laura, I see you are back home from the CES show. Talk about an association event of all events. Wow. Give us your intro, please.
I'm Laura Caputo. I am a strategy and operations consultant, and I've also recently started a role as executive advisor to the COO at Pinnacle Live, a national audiovisual company. In addition to that, I'm a speaker on artificial intelligence and its practical applications for professionals. I'll keep it short. I want to keep cheering for Sherry and her book. So that's all I got for today.
Well, thanks, Cecilia.
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Barbara. Great to be back for episode 2 of our series. I'm Cecilia Supp. I'm a certified association executive, an advanced certified nonprofit professional, and a leadership professional in ethics and compliance. And fun fact, I have as many credential letters after my name as it takes to spell my name. I'm a consultant at Rogue Tulips Consulting, a company that I founded. I'm a solopreneur working with other contractors, and my focus is executive leadership, training for staff. Of course, we use research tools to help our clients. And my focus greatly now, especially this year in 2026, is ethics and knowledge management. And those are areas I think we need to expand across our entire profession. But I also have an education program for people who are preparing for the CAE exam or who want to learn more about ethics. I do a webinar with Charles Ronk, who is a retired association management professional, but was the executive director of the Michigan Society. So shout out to Cheryl. Thanks, Barbara.
Thanks. And you also have a very relevant for today's conversation volunteer role with ASAE.
I do, yes. Thank you. ASAE Ethics Committee member this year.
Yay! Because those in associations never have any questions on ethics. Okay, thanks, ladies. And we're hoping podcast viewers caught episode 1 that was released in December that was AI for Everyday Work. That link is stored in the ASAE Collaborate Consultant Community Library. And I will drop the link in the chat and maybe we can get that into the show notes. And a quick reminder, this is part of the deliverables that have been requested by ASAE consultant members in response to recent surveys about what the Key Consultant Committee can provide to help us with our day-to-day business. So keep an eye on the ASAE Consultant Collaborate Committee. Put all those words into English for me, please. For lots more information that's going to be flowing from the Content Task Force during our pilot program as we're focusing our efforts on consultant to consultant. And we encourage all the watchers of this to send in thoughts and feedback, although I've recently gotten turned off about the word feedback. We're supposed to ask more for advice than feedback. Okay, let's do a quick round robin. Sherry, I heard Artesia Moore of Chicago recently state a philosophy I think I share, which is that if you're not learning new tools and exploring new processes all the time, then you're putting the association's future, and in our case, your consultancy's future, in danger. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, obviously, like I agree with the spirit of that. I would say kind of one addition is that I don't think that the tools save you, right? Like the tools can help you build capacity. And if we stop learning or we stop seeing patterns and we stop improving kind of our delivery as consultants, also as associations. So I think a lot about this because I think most of us here today kind of remember the internet moment, right? Like we're in kind of that era of the internet moment where, back in the 90s, associations started thinking about the internet as email and maybe websites were optional. And now it's the core to everything, right? Customer service and payments and research and everything. So today, I think the winners are going to be those that aren't necessarily going to predict every detail of what the future looks like, but who kind of start learning early, build habits, kind of teams and infrastructure. And also, not chase every shiny tool and be chaotic. I think we need to move with some disciplined learning and, choose those things that have some very high value use cases and run pilots and get staff trained. And that's with anything I think that we've seen or done over the years. I think it's really important to make sure that we're all prepared for what's coming next.
And we're paying attention to it, yes. And Laura, I've heard that as consultants, it's better that we not advise clients to use AI just to create new products. I mean, as Sherry was saying, let's not just chase the shiny new object, but to guide our clients on how to use it to streamline, pardon me, their internal processes and improve the member experience. And we need to practice that for our own consultancies also. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. The main thing is that when people talk about AI, often they're talking about theory or they're talking I'm not going to say way ahead because things are moving so quickly right now, but because they're talking about the future, they're not recognizing the needs of right now, of getting comfortable with right now and building AI into their workflow. So whether it's the simplest things of drafting agendas or summarizing meetings, SOPs, the most simple things that you can start to make it more comfortable for you now, then you will have the capacity and willingness and openness to move to the next phase of actually maybe building something in the future. Start first with the small stuff, make it like muscle memory and then move forward. That's my philosophy.
Beautiful. I love that. And Cecilia, I want to mention that during episode 1, we had some audio issues, and I bring it up not as a negative, but as a positive, because you used some tools, and I think some of them were AI tools, to clean it up a little bit and put out a beautiful little podcast. Can you talk a little bit about how that worked for you?
Yes, I think that's a great question because despite our best intentions, we have to rely on the tools that are available. And that's our internet connection, as Sherry pointed out. And that's really important. But one of the things we have to realize is that AI is everywhere. You can't really escape it if you're using technology. So building on what Laura said, you have to learn how to use it and identify the best ways for yourself to use it. So for that example of the audio cleanup, I use a software program for video editing called PowerDirector 365, and is basically now completely AI run. So the whole system is basically AI tools. Now, the beauty of that is I don't create the content with those AI tools, but I can present that content so that it looks its best and provides the best content for the audience and makes the presenter look good. So what those AI tools do for audio, for example, is they will take out noise, they will take out static. You can smooth out the audio so that it sounds more consistent. Because what happened in that first episode is one of our panelists was having issues with their internet connection. And so the audio was really, I'll just say funky. I'll use a 70s word. It was
Well, and it's
funky.
something that many of our consultant listeners are going to deal with in their own day-to-day life.
Exactly. And so that's the beauty of it. But I know we're talking about policies today, and we'll dig into that a little later. But that's also why I'm very clear with people. I use AI tools, but not to generate content. But I can make the content look nicer, look better, and help it reach more people that way.
Well, I use a pencil and it has an eraser on it, and I'll use the eraser.
That's right.
I don't know. But I do want us, now that we've gotten ourselves up and flowing, I do want to get into the meat of the conversation, which is AI policies for consultants. And it's a scary area for someone who hasn't tackled it yet. And it's like, oh my God, I have to write policies for my clients. You mean I have to write one for myself? So, Cecilia, start us off with a quick review of good ethics versus good policies, and when are they separate, and when must they be considered in tandem?
Oh, well, first of all, I don't think you can separate those two things.
Well,
If you have a good policy, it's going to be driven by good ethics. So the good ethics side of it, though, since you're presenting it that way, is what is our positive approach to the use of AI, and how are we going to present that AI policy to the world at large? Because I think as a consultant, it's crucial that we have our own internal policies and that we let people know where we stand on things. We have mission statements for our organizations. At least I hope we do. I have one. So we need to have those policies written down. We need to share those with people. We need to be transparent. We talk a lot about transparency and responsibility and accountability, and that's where that starts. So if you have good ethics, what you'll do is you'll write a good policy and you'll update that policy. I recently updated my AI policy a little bit to expand on our use of it, to clarify it a little bit. I originally wrote our AI policy in May of 2024, and I just updated it last week because we were doing some website updates. And so I was like, let me tweak this a little bit. Your policies don't have to be long, just like policies for our clients, our AI policies for how we're using those tools don't have to be 5 pages long. They can be a paragraph.
Well, and I've heard some say you don't really need an AI policy. You need a data governance policy. You need something that covers everything. And AI, as we were saying, is just one of the tools that we're using.
Exactly.
And I also think that since we preach to our clients, you need a policy on fill in the blank, sometimes we need to remember to practice it ourselves. Sherry, do you have one for OrgSource? I'm guessing you do.
Yes, we do. And I think one of the things that I wanted to kind of bring up is also making sure, I mean, Cecilia's a solopreneur, but I have a team. So I think it's important for the team to understand and be trained and understand the why. So there's things in our policy like we can only use our company AI tools, and we've got safeguards around security and all of those things. And what can't be used. So any, confidential customer information, we can't use in the tool, even though it's not necessarily training the tools, because that's how we have them set up. But kind of, provide additional safeguards. And when we're working with customers, one thing that has come up, which I think is a little bit interesting, but not surprising, is staff want to know the staff that are a little more, I guess, conservative or reserved or a little bit more afraid of the tools want to know those use cases of what can we do, so that has come up too. So anyway, just some additional thoughts in addition to what Cecilia had to say.
And what do all of you think about the disclosure of using generative AI for client-facing deliverables?
Can I just, no, that's okay. I just
want
want to add something to follow up on what Sherry said. It shows that you have a great environment in your company, because it's really important that people talk about these things, because it's also going to help them learn from one another. So if you have an open dialogue around using AI at work on what we can and what we can't do, we can also help teach one another, like, oh, I'm using it this way. Can we do that? Great. Let me show you how to do it. And it'll just ultimately help everyone be more efficient and productive.
Hey, Laura,
And
I have a follow-up question for you. Just something that came up in my brain that I always kind of wonder about it in 6 months or a year. You know, right now, nothing goes out of our company without human review. Like it's, you know, and we always talk about human in the loop or whatever, but that is not where this technology is going. And so I wanted to see, like, have you put any thoughts around like, you know, what the future might look like when we're looking at, you know, those kind of safeguards or policies? I don't know. I haven't quite gone there yet, so I wondered if you have.
What I think is this is an American cultural view.
mm,
So in America, I think there's a drive to replace labor. And I think in other countries, I know this is very far from our policy and ethics talk,
mm,
but in other countries, they're thinking about AI more as a tool. Even in China, it's more tool driven than replace the human driven.
mm.
So perhaps it could be a bigger picture discussion on, hey, America, we don't just want to replace everybody's job. We want to make sure that there is truly always a human in the loop to monitor whether we're going to have the driverless trucks going across the country and there's always a guy there or a guy just monitoring the fleet at all times. Things like that, that there's, for me, I hope that culturally in America and in our business environment that we can keep that as kind of the core humanity to all of this. That's what I
Yeah.
hope. I don't know if
Yeah,
it's going to
me
be the
too.
case.
Me too.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. Oh,
Well, and I think, Laura, that's a really great observation because a lot of technology worldwide is driven by Silicon Valley. And I think a lot of the people in Silicon Valley come into that thinking, oh, technology can do everything. We even have machines that will do surgery now, which frankly, I'm just going to say, I am not for that. I would rather have an actual human doing it than some machine being run from another room. But I think you're right, Laura. What we need to do is focus on how AI tools are going to help our labor force do their work better so that we're getting that human thinking involved in the work that we're doing.
but we still have a human labor force.
Yeah.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes, yes.
Humanoids are still really slow. Go to CES, you'll see that. Like it took it like 20 minutes to fold a t-shirt. I don't want that humanoid yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's where those folding machines could come in handy.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're not quite ready for Rosie the robot.
Not quite.
Only if she's doing what we want her to do. Yes.
That's right. Well, and Rosie the robot, for those who may not
Mhm.
know, was the robot made on the TV show The Jetsons.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes. But she was good and she served coffee too. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me get back to my point on using generative AI. Do any of you use that for client-facing deliverables? And if so, I imagine you disclose it, or what is your policy on that? I should leave it as an open.
No, well, I'll jump in on that. I do not use it to generate content for clients. I do use it sometimes to review qualitative data.
Mhm.
After I review it personally, I might run it through Google Gemini and see what are some commonalities in the research that maybe I've overlooked, or maybe it'll make a nice summary. And if I use that summary in the report, there is always a footnote that this was generated by Google Gemini after review by the consultant. So
Mhm.
that's how I do it. But I do not use it to create articles for clients or research reports for clients. I do that part myself.
Now, is that an ethical decision or that's just how Cecilia works? I mean,
It's a little bit of both, Barbara. It's how I work. I believe very strongly in the need for humans to be involved in the work. I think we saw a lot last year. People were talking a lot about how AI was putting out a lot of crap because people are doing generative. And so it only has so much it can keep regurgitating. And I think
Mhm.
people start to realize, oh, wait a minute, this is not the best way to go here. We got to have some new stuff put into the system. But I also think that ethically, you need to let people know if you did the work or not. I mean, let's think back to grade school. And you were not supposed to copy other people's work or copy their test, right? You got into trouble, you got corrected, you got disciplined. Why? Because if we're going to use AI tools to the best of our ability and to the extent that they can really help us with a lot of things, we need to have trained minds. We need to have people who think. We need to have people who know how to do research. We need to have people who know how to make decisions. And that's why I think, just from the human aspect of it, AI is not going to replace us. But if we get lazy about it or settle into inertia, then we will have a real problem, because I think we will have a knowledge gap.
Well, and we know that AI has the unintended biases built from what we fed it.
That's
So
right.
we have to protect against that. Yes.
If a client is working with me, they know I'm using AI. That is part of my spiel. So people are going to know I do it because I am such a proponent. Is it part of disclosures? Absolutely. I think the generative aspect for me is more on maybe some of the communications and marketing functions, whether you're doing LinkedIn posts. But like you said, if we're talking AI slop, everybody knows what a LinkedIn post generated by AI looks like if you've been working with AI at all. So having the human look at it, be like, how can I make this look a little less like a robot? I'm still going to go in there and change it and try my best, but still, as we work with AI more, we also can start to sound like AI as well. So we learn from it, it learns from us and what we see and determine to be good. So this is good writing. I like this. Then it's going to know how I write back and forth. So it's a little circular too. But yes, absolute disclosure and transparency is very important. But of course, I'm going to use generative AI for the low level things. If it's a low hanging fruit, please, the big stuff, sure, when we need our, stronger efforts, those reports, the real human touch. You're not going to have anybody do your interviews for you, your focus groups for you. You're there getting all that stuff done.
But it can help you summarize them really fast.
Exactly.
Yes,
But you have
and
to check
point
it
out something you may
because
have
it'll
overlooked.
make errors.
Yes.
We talked about this.
Yes, we did.
Exactly.
Well, and I mean, many consultants are also parents, and I know whenever I mention AI to a parent, it's immediately, oh, I'm so afraid for my child. Laura, I know you're focusing on that a lot. You've got your AI for Tots. I renamed it. I don't remember what it's called.
Yeah.
But what have you pulled from that you can share for us?
Sure. So it's called AI Kids, and
AI
it's
Kids. It's an
very,
easy
very
name. I still got
narrow.
it wrong. Yeah.
All good, all good. Very narrow window of like 8 to 11. So it's that third grade. They know how to use a mouse and a laptop. So that's the kind of entry point. The big thing with working with children is ethics, actually. And it's fun. I make that really fun for them because their favorite class was actually like, what's fake? And learning like, is this me? Did I write this? Did I do this? Where is this idea coming from? Having children understand that. There's also websites. I don't know if you've probably heard of Common Sense Media that comments on movies and say if that's appropriate for children. They're now covering websites for AI as well. So they have commentary on whether, what is it, Gemini is appropriate for kids. No, it's made for this age. Whether they can use ChatGPT, things like that. So know that those types of resources for parents are now expanding to cover AI tools as well. And a big one, whether you are a parent or not, there's Khan Academy and Khanmigo, which he's even written a book recently, which is a uh, fantastic resource for whether learning any subject, and as well as having AI options and tutoring for kids.
Wonderful. And I don't want to be mean, but some of our more fearful staff members may be well guided by some of those pointers for the 8 to 11-year-olds. Yes. Don't be too fearful. Well, Cecilia, I want to go on one of your superpowers, which is component relations.
Mhm.
And I've heard a number of AI uses associated with what if a client says, well, I'm going to use AI to recruit our next set of volunteers and, or our chapter leaders. But how would you feel about that? But especially if they let you know, well, our goal is that we want to correct certain existing gaps in equity and inclusion. And we think that with AI, we can do that better than by going to the same voices on the board who are putting the same names forward every time.
That's actually a great question because I was going to say it's a broad question when you
I
say
know
I'm
it
going to
is.
use AI for volunteer development or identification. So if you're using AI to find members who maybe have not been involved or as involved, maybe they're from a different generation or a different part of the country, or if you're a state group, a different part of the state, we want to try to get some different voices there. That's one thing because it's using AI, in my opinion, in an appropriate way, which is data assessment. You're gathering that data, you're reviewing it, you're saying, how can I use this data to find some new people? Because we also don't want to grind up the current volunteer group. We all have had volunteer burnout. We want to avoid that. But if you're using AI to say you absolutely must have X number of this group of people or Y number of this type of person, that's not necessarily going to be helpful. And here's why, because you still need those relationships. You still need to get to know the person and understand them and what are they looking for. And AI can get you demographics, they can get you contributions to the organization, they can show you how many conferences they've come to, but AI can't get to know your future leaders. And so using AI to communicate with people is fine as long as that communication is overseen by a human being. As Laura's pointed out, you want to make sure a person's looking at those messages. I just dropped my first episode of Radio Free 501c on January 12th, and our whole conversation was about communicating with AI tools and why it can't replace people skills. And that's because we need to get to know each other. We need to understand our motivations, and we need to find out what are people actually interested in getting out of a volunteer experience. So using it for inclusion and equity questions is only going to get you so far. And I would say that's probably not the best use of an AI tool for that. If you want true inclusion and diversity, you actually have to go outside your comfort zone as a person, a human being, and find those people who are different from you.
Great. Other comments? Okay.
I'll just say this feels like something that was pre-AI in a way, because this is part of dashboards and AMSs and things that people have been trying to do for years as related to diversity. So I would think once you say the word AI, that people are just want to blame a tool. They're like, oh, I just use this tool. It is magic to make diversity, you know? So I don't trust that. But I completely agree with Cecilia that if diversity is a goal, and we're not even talking about AI, it has to be relationship based. This is associations. These are people that need to know one another, and you're going to get a richer experience for everybody if you talk and connect. The tool, the AI tool itself, people could have done a lot of that stuff before. They just had to know how to use our AMS.
Right.
Right? I would
Yeah.
look at Sherry for that, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Well, we're not
Well,
going to solve
and
any.
if I
Yeah.
could add something on that, Barbara, the future of chapters is changing. It actually has been changing for, I'm going to say 15 years. And I've been talking with people about the way we used to do things is not going to work anymore. And that's where I think AI can be a plus for our chapter leaders, because AI can make their job as volunteer leaders easier if we teach them how to use it and have it set up well. And that's where it can really help a lot with component relations, whether you're working with chapters or affiliates. So I don't want to say no AI for component relations, but what we want to do is make sure they're understanding that tool so that they get the most out of that experience.
That's fabulous. Well, thank you. And Laura, as busy as you are, and congrats on the new job, I know you also do a lot of volunteer work with the Florida Society. And I think all of us do work with national and state societies. So I'm curious of any ways that you're using AI so that you can streamline your volunteer work to give your best efforts. But let's face it, these are non-billable hours.
When I received the prep for this and this question was put out there, I was like, these are all things that all of you do as busy individuals. So with Sherry as someone who runs a business for many years, for Cecilia and your consulting, and all of you use tools to manage all of our calendars, where we're their parents or we have to take care of our parents, or we are parents and take care of children, things, all of
Or
these
both.
things. Yes, all of these things. So we all have different ways to manage that. I go back to what I said earlier, that whatever we can use to reduce the friction when it comes to the simple things that we do every day, whether it's manage calendars and organize our notes and follow up emails. And that is how we get things done. And if you want, especially for consultants, we're juggling so many things. Whatever tool we can use to make things more clear for us to be more effective, I'm going to bring it into my toolkit. And if you, I look at all of you to add to that, because I know you're all doing it too.
Well, that's why I've embraced AI, definitely, for volunteer work. Okay. I'm gonna go to a little bit more back to our ethics framework here, and I'm gonna put Cecilia on the spot. I know, well, in your role as a CAE educator, for example, because I mean, this is blending your consulting practices with your CAE educator role. Does your policy, your AI policy, cover situations where you may have someone in one of your study groups that you are suspecting or detecting they're using AI to query best answers for those darn scenario questions that are in the CAE study guide and test? Is that a positive? Is that a negative? But I mean, I'm looking at it as a negative because if they uploaded copyrighted materials,
Mhm.
then that's a little bit of an ethical no-no. But has that cropped up yet?
Well, actually, I've had several instances, not specifically AI related, but ethical related to the CAE. So I was mentoring a study group last year, and somebody in the study group comes into the Zoom meeting and says, "You know, Cecilia, one of my friends sent me 15 questions from your practice exam." And I said, "Really?" And she said, "Yes. And they're really hard questions, but I find them useful." And I said, "You know, that's copyrighted material, and other people have to pay for that. So what you did is not cool."
You're not passing the CAE.
And she said, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And I said, "Well, what you're doing is unethical and is against our standards of conduct," which is the lesson for a CAE, no matter what you're doing with content. So whether it's my copyrighted content or your copyrighted content or Sherry's or Laura's copyrighted content, you have no right to be uploading it or taking it without paying for it unless it is a free resource. So that being said, that's the real ethical issue with the CAE content, is what are people doing with it? Now, as far as like people taking something they get from the course and using it on their own in an AI situation, let's say they pop it into Google Gemini and say, "Can you just summarize this article or something?" And they're just using it for themselves. I'm ambivalent on that because I think a lot of it has to do with intention. That's what drives ethics. What is our intention? Now, we all know the road to hell is paved with good ones, but still, what is our intention? I think that's what we have to look at. If you are not taking somebody's content and sharing it widely, you're just using it for yourself. That's, I think, okay. And that's being responsible. A lot of ethics starts with responsibility, personal responsibility as an individual. So there's that. I am, again, ambivalent about the use of AI for preparing for the CAE exam. I know a lot of people get very excited about using AI to help them study. They say it generated a bunch of questions for me, but where did you get the content that generated those questions? And it is a thinking exam. It's not a content exam. So as far as studying for the CAE, I will say this: current CAEs taking courses to get CAE renewal credits, or you're working toward getting the CAE, you have to put that information in your head. AI cannot put it in your head for you. And you need to be responsible with how you use the content that you put into AI.
Okay. Well, and similar to that, let's say that a client comes to us and they want us to do an AI-driven email campaign or some other promotional project for them for, say, member retention. And you pull data from their CRM so that you can personalize the messages. And Maybe you have one test message that you're going to try out that stresses more urgency to drive faster action, and it's all AI driven. Is that great marketing, or does the AI variable add more manipulation to the member engagement than we might want?
I think, Sherry, did you have any thoughts on that one?
Yeah.
I mean,
Or is that too muddy a way to put the question? Yeah.
well, I guess I'll answer it a little bit different. I mean, when you're talking about, I guess the questions around like creating marketing that needs to be useful and truthful. I don't think because of AI anything necessarily changes on how we should be working, right? So like if you're talking about like, okay, we have a marketing message, we're trying to create some urgency. If those messages truthful and it's helping members act on something that is truly going to benefit them, then great. Then AI is going to, generative AI is going to help you get there quicker, faster. I probably wouldn't be talking about or thinking about pulling member data. They probably already have tools. They're probably already using things like HubSpot or Salesforce or whatever that would be kind of driving that. And we could maybe help them set up templates or things like that. But if the urgency or the marketing is manufactured, AI is going to help you with that. And, that's obviously, I think, fake scarcity or exaggerated loss or guilt language. Like it's just, I don't know, manipulating people isn't the way to go. But like I said, you could do that without AI tools too, right? Like, it's the deal. You were just talking about people taking your content. That's happened to me over the years. And I think about it all the time now because I'm like, okay, somebody can take, like, I am pretty positive, like my first draft of my book, because someone was, they were an endorser and I was like, ooh, they just used AI. And like, I think maybe they uploaded the draft and hopefully they have it in a private, whatever. But I'm like, at a certain point, I kind of have to let it go because I'm like, I don't know. Like, but people have, taken our RFPs and reused them. And somebody, a vendor has called and said, hey, Sherry, are you working on this client? And I'm like, what are you talking about? They're like, this is your RFP. We've seen it, 5 times because you've sent it to us, whatever. Like it's the same format, everything. Today, I think with AI, the reality is people are uploading things. People don't know. And I don't know that necessarily the intention is bad. I don't know that I have an answer to that. But these kind of scenarios that we're talking about, I think it does go back to ethics and having people understand what is good use cases, what aren't, where should we, how should we train the staff on things that they just, don't know? Because now it's easier than ever to take any piece of content and you could say, and I've heard people say this, they're like, oh, take Laura's article and take it and then put it in whatever generative AI tool and then tell it to, rewrite something similar for you. Like it's happening. People openly talk about it. So I don't know.
Yeah.
So I just went off on a tangent, but
no, it's all
anyway.
But that's really kind of the heart of it, Sherry.
Yeah.
The ethics of how we're using other people's content, how we're using our own content, because really the world right now is video and intellectual property. And if we don't protect intellectual property, then what are we going to have? What is the value? Human existence has always been driven by knowledge and how we use that knowledge and the choices we make and how we behave. And we can lose knowledge. I've been thinking a lot about the book Brunelleschi's Dome lately, as I've been thinking about intellectual property, and I've been thinking about knowledge and knowledge management, how we use things, especially in a world with AI where we can create things very quickly. At one point, just between the year 1000 and the year 1400, so only 400 years, we forgot how to build domes. If you've ever been to Rome or seen pictures of Rome, there are domes everywhere on the ancient buildings. They figured out how to do it. We forgot how to make domes. And then Brunelleschi in Florence, Italy in the 1400s figured out how to do it again. And everybody thought he was brilliant. But what he did is he found lost knowledge. And so that's another thing we need to be aware of. Ethically, we need to be responsible for preserving knowledge as well, because if we rely too much on AI to generate knowledge, to generate things, we're going to lose things because we'll start to get lazy. that is the human tendency. We tend toward lazy and inertia, and that's okay. But there are certain areas where you need to make sure that you're paying attention. And that's why I think it's so crucial that we do have an ethical grounding for our policies for AI, how we're using it, what we're doing with it. And just as individuals, being aware of the fact that you can't just take something somebody created that maybe other people pay for. It's similar to shoplifting in a way. It's intellectual shoplifting. So
You're
we
right,
need to
it
be
is.
aware of that.
Two follow-up points. So one, for the consultants that have not done it yet, definitely go into whatever AI assistant you are using and make sure that you have the setting turned on, that you are not
Yes.
sharing the information with, to improve the AI models. Okay.
Right.
If you don't know how to find that, ask AI, how do I turn that on? And it'll tell you how to do it. Okay. So strong, that is one thing, step one. The other thing, when you were describing earlier, Cecilia, about people using your test questions, I thought about when I took the bar exam. I am licensed in 2 states. I've passed 2 bars. Definitely, people have given me mounds of books. We exchanged them when I went to Indiana first and passed. When I got to Illinois, people gave me books, but I still took the class. So I think of it, even if you don't think that person was ethical, they still paid to take your class. It was like marketing. Essentially, they got this lady knows she talked about. She gave me some great questions. So it's like Napster. These things, unfortunately, people are going to be taking and sharing and selling. That's just what people do. People share resources. It sucks. You might not get paid for it. At the same time, there is always positive of getting things out there that people might not have known about. So it is what it is. It's a reality. We can tell people, shake our fingers at them, but they're going to keep doing it. Just know Cecilia's awesome at teaching ethics. Tell your friends and sign up for her course.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Laura. I appreciate that. Yeah, and it is out there. And building what you said, Laura, I always say to people, we have policies when things go wrong. So generally, we don't need to set a policy until a mistake has happened or we see somebody do something we don't like, because they're going to keep doing it. But if we have the policy, we can say, hey, we had this policy. You weren't supposed to share that without permission, which is what I put on all our materials. You cannot share this without written permission. Just ask me. So, because we are trying to be helpful. I mean, and that's what I say to people, Laura, in my materials. I say, we all want to be helpful, but let's make sure we ask.
Well, Sherry, any closing thoughts from you? I know we've covered so much.
I know
already.
we have covered a lot today. But I would just say that, I think a lot of this is we need to continue to I guess, teach or talk about critical thinking, right? Like with anything with AI, making sure that it's being reviewed, that we're critically thinking. I think, Laura, you had brought up, in your practice using AI. I think it's expected that in our practice too, that we're using AI, but there's places that we need to make sure that we're disclosing. There's things that get missed and summary reports, AI note takers they're not 100%, we're reviewing those. We may, use them as a summary to then do, a status report or something, but just to make things more efficient for ourselves and our clients. But at the end of the day, I'll leave you with this. Right now, I have a daughter who's in college, and she's not only taken an AI course, but she's in communications, and they're teaching them how to use AI and how to critically think. For example, because the professors know they're using AI, right? Like, so they want them to tell them what question they asked. Did they ask the right question? What was the output? If they agreed with the output, and why they believe they agreed with the output or what they changed. So they're making them critically think through, not just using ChatGPT and getting a paper result, but thinking through the whole entire process. And I think that's something that I think would be valuable for everyone, just to take a step back and even tell our teams, how are we critically thinking through the output? Because, we're at the end of the day, we need to be the ones making the decisions, right? So
Hallelujah.
I'll leave you with that for my my 2 cents for today.
Well, thank you. And thank all three of you so very much for sharing
This
your
is fun.
time, your insights. I appreciate it. And to let our listeners know that we're going to have episode 3 coming shortly. It'll be a little bit of time so you can be ready and expecting it. But episode 3 will be on AI tools to promote your consulting business to associations.